everyone from the public is able to observe and watch if they would like. We stream these live, so that should be working now. The last thing I need to do is read through our hearing script. This is basically just going to outline the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll start. So this is the October 19th, 2022 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the Zoning Hearing Examiner. I'll preside over the hearing. The case before us today is case number ZH20220152. That's 708 Mount Hope Avenue. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the Zoning Hearing Examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. Unless someone has presented evidence or testimony in the form of writing prior to this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. Members of the public will then have an opportunity to speak after the applicant has presented its case. I will give the zoning plans examiner, Wes Menzel, an opportunity to provide any testimony in addition to his staff report. Then, in the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will then have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument that was offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. So I'll start with Mr. Burwinkle. I'll then go to the two adjacent property owners. I'll allow Wes Menzel to provide any testimony, and then go back to Mr. Burwinkle to respond to any of the testimony that he had heard from adjacent property owners or from Mr. Menzel, and then for Mr. Burwinkle to make any final closing remarks. So generally, members of the public sort of have one bite at the apple here. So please be sure to get all testimony and questions out when I give you that opportunity. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of this application. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony. So generally, evidence that you want to introduce that consists of statements made by people that are not present or have not submitted any formal testimony in writing, I may choose not to admit that evidence. In the event of any technical difficulties with our Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those issues on the fly. But to the extent there's some defect in the tech that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone this hearing at my discretion. Okay, last thing I need to do is swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, doing anything other than just strictly observing, the zoning code requires me to swear you in. So if you believe that is you and you would like to say something, if you could make sure that you are off mute at this time, I'll need everyone to raise their right hand, and I need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. We're all sworn in. I believe we're ready to begin. So Mr. Burwinkle, now's your opportunity to tell me a little bit more about this project, any background you think is important, of course, why you think I should grant this relief and why it's appropriate. So the floor is yours if you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Sturkey. So I provided a request for relief of a special variance request. Is it necessary for me to read that entire document or just highlight?
It is not necessary, but it's completely up to you. If you'd like to read the whole thing, you can. It's a part of the record, so you don't need to read it for it to be part of the record. But if you want to provide the highlights, that's fine as well.
Okay, great. I'll just do the highlights then. The proposed work conforms to all applicable plans. The driveway access to the parking area is existing, suitable and adequate to carry anticipated traffic. The new 7-space parking area replaces a deteriorated 4-car driveway that was part of a house that was torn down. The anticipated traffic will not overload the adjacent street, as the purpose of the space is to handle guest parking for Incline Place Condominium Association, the owner of this property, who is located adjacent to 710 Mount Hope. This proposed project will reduce the number of cars parking on Mount Hope Avenue, which will provide additional parking for adjacent neighbors. The proposed landscaping plan meets the requirements of Chapter 1423 will provide appropriate buffering to protect adjacent uses or properties from light, noise, and visual impacts. The parking area is for guests of 710 Mount Hope Avenue only. The proposed parking area is compatible with the prevailing land use, building patterns of the neighborhood. It will not have a material net cumulative adverse impact on the neighborhood. As part of the packet I provided, Exhibit A provides 12 different examples within the immediate neighborhood of the type of variance we're requesting. There's no adverse effect from this proposed project as it does not impact access to the property by fire, police, or other public services or affect access to light and air from adjoining properties. It, in fact, will have a positive impact on development, usefulness, and value of neighboring land and buildings by increasing the taxable value of this parcel, removing cars from the street, and by enhancing the appearance of the property by removing a deteriorated driveway and retaining wall and replacing it with an attractive cut stone retaining wall system, a permeable parking area, and beautiful landscape beds. Our neighbors, many of whom have little or no off-street parking, and if they do have off-street parking, it is in the front or side yard. And I submitted an Exhibit B of multiple examples of that, will benefit from the availability of the additional on-street parking. We believe the proposed special exception is appropriate to the location. In the location proposed, it is compliant with the code and district purposes. The proposed development will not substantially diminish or impair the value of the property within the neighborhood it is located. In fact, it will have a positive effect on development, usefulness, and value of neighboring land and buildings by increasing the taxable value of this parcel, removing cars from the street, and enhancing the appearance of the property by removing a deteriorated driveway and retaining wall, and replacing with a custom wall, permeable area, and beautiful landscape beds. And I presented several other exhibits that outlined the comments I've made. And with that, I've completed my statement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burwinkle. I'm just going to try to add some context here for myself and hopefully for others in the hearing here today. So there's an existing parking pad. Is that correct?
There was an existing parking pad. There was a house that was torn down. It had a driveway with a side apron that was deteriorated and was capable of holding 4 cars. And I'm looking for the exhibit that shows that.
Mr. Burwinkle, I'm just going to share my screen here. Can everyone see the Google Street View here?
Yes.
Great. Is this, what am I looking at here?
That's the new parking area.
Okay, so this is the new and improved parking area, but there was one in this location prior to this.
Right. If you go back to, you're on Cages.
No, I'm on Google Street View.
Oh, okay.
I mean, here's a sort of zoomed out view here.
You can go back to prior years, can't you?
Maybe, but I guess you know, was the
Oh, that's a prior right there.
Okay, got it.
Because there was we took that tree down. It was rotted and a hazard, so we removed that tree. And where your cursor is, that was the existing driveway. And then if you go back where the 708, you can see where that pad expanded back there.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the house that was torn down was to the right of that.
Over here.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So the work on this parking pad has been mostly complete already. Is that right?
Right. Unfortunately, our contractor informed us, because it was a permeable surface, that we didn't need a permit. And shame on us, we didn't do the proper research. When we realized that there was an issue, we stopped construction. The landscaping, bumpers, steps, and a couple other things still need to be completed.
Okay. And I'm going to go a little bit out of order here, but Wes, if you're with us, we can unmute real quickly. Could you give us an idea what exactly the code requires here in terms of this being in the setback and what they're requesting?
Yes, so the code requires parking to be, well, first of all, this parcel is linked to the condo building in the back via the condo documents from the original setup or whatever. So
So the same ownership?
yeah, same ownership. And so the rules for this district require parking to be behind the 20-foot setback line. And so their parking lot, the parking space starts at 17 feet. So there's actually only half of like one space that's encroaching into the 20-foot setback.
Would that be the first space here?
Yes.
You're saying that's approximately 17 feet back?
Yeah, according to their site plan as shown on page 6 of the staff report. There's no page numbers there, but there it is.
Okay. And so if the parking began 20 feet back, this parking pad on this parcel would be permitted as to right under the zoning.
Yeah, like the 6 spaces in the behind that first space would be allowed in, you know, half of the first space, but approximately.
So if I were to deny this application for relief, they could simply remove the first parking spot and the other 6 would be.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Wes. I just wanted to get some clarity. Okay. Let's see. Mr. Bullwinkle, could you tell me a little bit more about the proposed landscaping plan?
I'm sorry.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the proposed landscaping plan? How exactly do you intend on mitigating any adverse visual impacts of cars parked in that parcel?
Well, it was the landscaping plans were submitted as part of the permit, and that landscaping will go all the way along the south side of the parking area, and then turn and go north on the west side. So it'll run along Mount Hope Avenue south, and then turn east and go all the way to the end of the parking area.
So are you talking about along here, along the actual edge of the parking here?
Yes.
Or on the outside?
On the upside.
So it'll just essentially surround this area here?
Correct. Because what the code requires is that chapter 1423 requires that we provide appropriate buffering to protect adjacent uses on or properties from light, noise, and visual impacts. So when we finish our landscaping, it'll minimize the visual impact and any light when cars pull into that parking lot and turn to park.
And thanks. And what, just for everyone's edification, it may not have the landscaping plan in front of them right now. What kind of plantings are you going to put there? What will be the height? Do you have that determined yet?
They will be the height to conform with chapter 1423 of the code. So, I mean, I don't mean to be evasive, but you know, it'll be probably 2, 3, 4 foot. I'm really not. I don't have the landscape plan in front of me, but I know that it's been submitted and it's part of the permit approval process.
Okay. Wes, do you know what the proposed vegetation is there?
I'm just looking at the landscape plan. He's got notes on there. We thought it was adequate to meeting the requirements. He's got it on the south, the west, and the east side. And then the north side is built into the hill, so there's like a retaining wall, like kind of providing, and then there's another layer of trees right behind that are there now. So we felt that the parking lot landscaping requirement was met.
And it adds a sufficient barrier,
Yes,
visual barrier.
yes.
Okay. Let's see. All right, I think that's all the questions I have right now. Thanks, Mr. Burwinkle. I'm going to go ahead and give our members of the public here, adjacent property owners, an opportunity to weigh in. I'll start with Mr. Mumphrey. Mr. Mumphrey, is there anything you'd like to add?
Hi, good morning. You just talked about visual barrier. I mean, it is a nice parking lot. I'm not complaining about its appearance at all. I think Mr. Bullwinkle has done very good with that. It's just my concern is the safety. Everything needs to be at code. And I've done a lot of work to my house and I've had them come in and tear things out because it wasn't to code. I've seen people pull into the parking lot. They've been using it now. When they park, there's only enough room for them to go in and then back up and then come out. When they back up and come out, I'm right across the street from it. You talked about visual barriers. All these lights are going to be right on me all night long. And that is residential like it is. That was only originally a driveway for a house. And then he's extended it to a parking lot. It could have went on top of the hill next to his house. He could have extended up there. And then the visual barriers, it'd be just fine. But you're going to be putting all that lighting on me. And when it comes time to sell my house, nobody's going to want to live next door to a parking lot. That's my biggest concern right there. Everything must be a code. And understand he's asked, for leniency, but please take in concern the rest of us that live here. And there's not enough room for everybody on the street to park in there. There's only 6 spaces. Then you're going to take it down to 5. And I understand it's for them up there, but please take concern about us down here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mumphrey. I'd like to ask you just a hypothetical. It looks like if I deny this, well, first off, are you asking me to deny this application to allow this parking lot?
I'm asking you to have him put it in. It looks good. If it has to stay, then it has to stay. If it has to go back, then go back. I'm asking you to deny it as it stands, but to repair it so it meets codes, and at the same time have consideration for the rest of the neighbors, especially me across the street when it comes to lighting. You're gonna have these lights on there. And I know he wants safety. I know he doesn't want any people breaking into the cars, and you have security. But I understand I'm trying to sleep over here at night, and these cars backing in or coming out or having the lights on at night. Then he's going to be disturbing me and my company that I have over here. And there's not enough room there for me to use it, or anybody to visit, because you only have 5 slots for them. You can't park behind each other. That's what I'm getting at. You can't park like this. You have to park in a line. There's not enough room to back out and come in with another car.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Anything else you'd like to tell me, Mr. Mumphrey?
No, that's about it. I know we have another guy putting in a new house up there, and everything he's doing is by code. I mean, it's all there to protect us, and that's
Sure.
what it does.
Sure, I completely understand that. And part of the code does allow for these exceptions when they are practical. And so that's sort of why I was asking them earlier, you know, what does the code require? And the code requires them technically to move this back 3 feet. So do you think if I held them to that and they removed
I think if you held him to that,
that would
yeah.
improve the conditions that you're concerned about?
right, I think if you held him to that and he puts in something to where the lighting will not affect me, you know, across the street will not. And I know it's going to look good because he's doing it already. I'm not against him. I know it's going to look good, but he needs to, if you move it back and you do the lighting in such a way to where it doesn't blare on me at night or whoever's staying with me, I'm fine with it. We have a street lamp in front of our house and that's doesn't bother me, you know. So
Okay.
I think if you stick to your code and you move it, that would be fine.
Thanks, Mr. Mumphrey. Appreciate your time, your testimony here today, and your perspective as a neighbor across the street. I think I'll go ahead and give Mr. Rom an opportunity to provide any testimony if he would like, and or maybe ask some of the questions that he had in his email that have not been addressed so far. Mr. Rom, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Starkey. I think you addressed a lot of the questions I had. So I think I've had basically 3 bullet points. The first one was property ownership and usage. So wanted to ensure that we really didn't have a communal parking lot. So the concern was parcel at 708 and 710. Sounds like they're not one parcel, just from looking at cages. But there is some agreement between 710 and the owner of 708, I imagine, sounds like, that they have beneficial use of that. How do we guarantee that the 708 parking lot doesn't become some kind of a communal use for 706 or 704, the other 2 parcels that are adjoining 710? There's some developments down there. So I just want to make sure we don't set a trend where we have, you know, community parking like that. So is it possible to take 708 and 710 and do a lot consolidation from a future point of view? That was the first concern. The second one was really the wall is to be that close to the street is somewhat, it's done well, but it's somewhat unsightly also, just the size of it being that close to the street. So I understand, you know, there's going to be some kind of foliage on top of the wall. I would say if we can take the corner of the wall, the southeast corner of the wall, put some level of some kind of plants or something to cover that corner would be good. And if it's possible to lower the wall.
Are you referring to this corner?
Yes, yes.
And you want it on the outside? You're
On the outside, yeah, if we can sort of basically hide that corner. And also from a safety point of view, that may be a little bit higher than where it should be without requiring railings. That'll also help not to have railings because they'll just extend the height of that area. That would be a suggestion. Other suggestion was maybe somehow graded down so the top of the wall is a little bit lower, but you know, it's already installed. So why do all that? It might be simpler just to put some plants in the corner and keep neighborhood kids from jumping off the edge. They're gonna, you know how kids are, they just, you know, go all over the place. And that may keep them from, you know, from that edge in the corner, and also from a visual point of view, cover it so it's not as outstanding and prominent as it is right now. So in general, I think what is happening here, I think it's good for the area, but you know, where it takes the cars off the streets, you know, when the condo complex has overflow. So it, it helps from the parking situation. Obviously there's the lighting concern that has been mentioned. But from the number of spots available, it definitely helps the residents by having a little bit more spots on the street when it's when they're having company. So if some of these things could be addressed, I don't have problems with it. It's just got to be also the other part was, and to point out again, I think some of the building codes need to be followed. Just want to make sure we don't have stormwater issues. I'm not sure if there's drainage in there or not. But it all obviously needs to be looked by civils and so on and so forth as the permitting process happens.
Anything else, Mr. Rowe?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time and testimony here today. Mr. Burwinkle, before I come back to you, I just want to give Wes Menzel an opportunity to weigh in. And Wes, are you able to respond to any of Mr. Rohn's comments, in particular the building code stuff?
Yeah, I'll try.
Separate building code review, right?
Yeah, the building code reviewers would review it. I agree that maybe that safety railing is something that needs another look. I don't know if they've reviewed the permit and approved it yet from that standpoint or not, but I do want to add a couple comments beyond my staff report. So I did just research the landscape plan, the plantings noted. So along the west edge of the parking, the rose glow barberry, that is to be 4 to 5 feet tall at maturity. The Dennis yew is also about 4 feet tall. So those cover the west edge, which would be the side facing Mr. Mumphrey. And the knockout roses on the south are 3 to 4 feet. And that's as far as I got in the couple minutes I spent on it. But I guess I had a question about the light coming. Is that for when the cars are exiting the lot? That's when they would shine on Mr. Mumphrey's house? Is that what you were concerned about?
That, and when, yes, I'm concerned about that. And when at night, if the lights are going to stay on, if he's going to have overhead lights, or if they're going to, because if those are going to stay on.
Yeah, I don't see any overhead lights on the plan, but
Okay.
maybe.
Because I've seen some poles coming up out of the ground with electricity. I was wondering if he's going to have overhead lights, or if it's going to be a light on a pole. Then as long as it is not too bright, but if it's an overhead light, then I mean those can get pretty bright.
Okay, I don't see any light poles on the plan, so maybe that's another part of the permit that needs review, or maybe David can. I know the city requires any lighting, exterior lighting has to be 20 feet maximum height, and the fixture has to face down and be embedded into the fixture, so the light fixture is not visible from off-site. So they have to conform to that.
I'm sure he'll confirm to it. I'm just showing that that's my concern. My concern is the lighting. So I don't have to come back later and then put in complaints. That's why you're there, to have it done right the first time, and
Okay.
then everybody will be in compliance.
Mr. Burwinkle, what is the proposed lighting, if any, on that lot?
The proposed lighting is the same as the same carriage lights we currently have along our driveway. So we're not going to put up a big parking lot pole LED bright light thing. It's more to light around the parking lot. So number one, you got some light in the parking lot, and also as people are walking up to Incline Place, they have light to get up the steps and through the parking lot.
Okay, so when you say carriage light, and I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what exactly that means. Are these like small lights on the ground, or taller?
Yeah, I think the pole is it's a 5-foot pole with a carriage light on top of it. A carriage light, the light shines out of the 4 sides of it. it's not a parking lot light.
It like that. Yeah.
This one?
There you go. We're gonna put 6 more of those in. We'll put one on the other side of the parking lot, right at the entrance, one on the corner, and then one down heading east, another one in the back corner heading east, and then there'll be a stairwell up here in the far back corner. There'll be another one up on that stairwell.
David, I'm not sure those would be permitted because the light is emanating outwards, like onto the other properties around, like, I'd have to check with Emily, but I don't know if that'd be a permitted light design.
Well, it's the same light design we currently have in use. So I'm fairly confident that it's permitted. But again, whatever is approved is what we'll be doing.
Okay.
We already have probably 10 of these lights going up our driveway now.
Yeah, there's been a renewed push to enforce the lighting rules so that we have less spillage on the neighboring properties. So we're really looking closely at this now in our permits. So I mean, I'd like to confirm if that kind of design is okay, but I would predict that it's not, but I'd have to ask Emily.
Okay. Well, as is the case with everything in these type of reviews, if it's permitted under the code by right, there's nothing that the city can or will do to change what the property owner wants, how they want to emit light on their property. But if it's not permitted with the code, which we can do a review before I make my decision, of course, they would have to get additional zoning relief in order to install those lights as described. It's hard to say whether they're permitted or not, just based on whether there may be some on the property already, because it may be something that just hasn't been enforced yet, or if their older lights were grandfathered in before the new code was instituted. So that's something that I'll certainly consider and look into before issuing a decision on this. Okay, Wes.
Oh, I was just going to wrap up by just saying that overall, we felt that the proposal would not have any substantial adverse impacts. That's not reflecting the lighting issue, of course, because there wasn't any lighting on the plan. But we thought that it would enhance parking for the neighborhood and because there's a bunch of houses don't have any off-street parking, so they have to park on the street, and so this would get the guests of the incline condo off the street, freeing up spaces for the neighbors. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Menzel. Appreciate your work on the staff report and testimony here today. Mr. Burwinkle, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to any of the testimony you've heard, any of the concerns from the neighbors, and any other remarks here before we adjourn.
Thank you. Regarding lighting, Mr. Mumford, your concern is the car is pulling out?
My concern is like the lighting that is on all night long. If it's a low voltage and it's not too bright to disrupt me, you know, imagine yourself sitting in your condo and I have lights on all the time, and it's not fair to you. But if it's a low voltage, it's not the real high street lamps like the state, because I didn't know what kind you were actually using.
Okay.
But it sounds like you have it under control. It sounds like, you know, the carriage lamps that you have, possibly on a timer, or like what you have going up your driveway now, they don't affect me at all. They're pretty good. They're not too bright. You're okay. Whatever is approved by code, you know, naturally I have to accept. But if I got this opportunity to ask you right now, that would be, hey, how about a low voltage one, maybe on a timer down at the bottom of the hill, and when they pull out, just, I mean, you know, your neighbors, you know, don't use your bright lights, be considerate to others, and
Yeah, okay.
that's it.
Well, I hear what you're saying about the carriage lights, and ultimately there's two that have been at the foot of our driveway.
Yeah.
For 29 years, and so we'll be adding two more further down, and so you won't have more light intrusion than you do from the two we've had there for 29 years, and in fact, the two new ones. Will help light up down the street because, as I'm sure you're aware, you've seen people come up, cut up through the woods and up to no good. And we all know that light helps minimize crime in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I know you have to protect your parking spot with the lighting and on. That's fine. My concern was like a high voltage, a very bright light, you know, and you know, it sounds like you got it because the ones you have in your driveway are naturally not that bright. The one I have isn't that bright. You know, I have one across the street also.
Right.
And
Okay.
those are fine. I thought you was going to put in big parking lights.
Right. No, I got you. Okay.
Huge. Yeah.
Okay, great. Mukesh, regarding the plantings, regarding the wall, we'd be more than happy to add decorative grasses along the Mount Hope side of the wall to soften that, and potentially come around the corner and bring it up the side for a certain amount of distance. So hopefully that'll answer your concern about softening the look of the wall. Even though there's 12 different examples in the neighborhood of similar walls that that don't have that, but if that helps your concern with the wall, then we're more than happy to do that.
Bill, is it possible to put something more hardy around the corner, just on the bend where it goes from south to east? Just in that corner, something more taller, evergreenish?
Yeah, but I'm not sure what it would be. My first preference for landscaping has never been evergreens. And frankly, these grasses, we'll keep the grasses on our driveway now. We'll keep those until the spring, and they come in the spring and cut them down. And every year they grow. I mean, right now, I think the grasses along my driveway are at least 3 to 3.5 foot tall. So, and that'll stay there all the way through winter, and then in spring we'll cut them off and they'll grow back up again.
Sure. So the wall is probably closer to, let me say, like 40 inches or so, or maybe around that. So having said that, the two reasons I was looking at the corner and talked about it was not just a visual, but also from a safety point of view, to keep neighborhoods, you got kids, they're going to go to the corner, they're going to jump. So having something more substantial there would keep that from a safety point of view. It might save you from having to put in some kind of railing there, you know. So it's I think it might be a win-win to put something hardier and beefier there, to have another taller some kind of a railing there. So that's the reason I'm suggesting that. So I would suggest you may want to consider that.
Okay, well, at the top of the wall, we're putting in taller, hardier plants there. So hopefully that'll minimize kids climbing through the landscaping, the jump. And at this point in time, I'm more than happy to to put grasses along the wall to help soften the look of it. Because right now, that would improve the look. So,
Okay.
David,
Yeah, sure.
can I say one more thing I forgot to say earlier is that the pavers that are being used are permeable, which means the water can go through them. So there's like no storm water like running off or very little. And then Mr. Burwinkle, you'll need to get a permit for the lighting. No matter what style, you need to get a building permit for that.
right. And
Thanks.
we're in the permitting process right now. I'll make sure the electrical is included.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Mr. Burwinkle, anything else in closing or otherwise before we adjourn?
No, I appreciate everybody's input and appreciate your consideration and approval of a 3-foot variance to allow us to park one additional car off the street.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to just start by thanking everyone again for their time and testimony here today. I appreciate when neighboring property owners can have civil conversations like this and come to some compromise. So thank you all for that. I am inclined to approve this application primarily due to the fact that I think whether this was constructed or not constructed already, it would be sort of impractical to remove that parking space in order to just put another car on the street. And so, as I said, I'm inclined to approve this. However, I am able to attach certain conditions to that approval. And that's something that I'd like to spend a little bit more time with based on the testimony that I've heard today. And so I will formalize all of this in a written decision that I will send to everyone. I put into a PDF and I email it to everyone who's in the hearing here today. So you all have a copy of it really just moments after it's complete. In that decision, I will outline the conditions that I think are appropriate to try to mitigate some of the impacts we've talked about today. The only other thing I would say about that is I would encourage you all to continue to have these conversations, whether I have a condition in there or not. That does not prevent you all from continuing to have these conversations and coming to some sort of mutual agreement about how you would like that to look. So I would encourage you all to continue that dialogue regardless of what conditions you see in the decision. Okay. Any questions about any of that before we go here today? Okay, great. Well, if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address is on the screen. If you'd like an update on the status of that decision, where I'm at with that, I'm also happy to provide that to you as well in the meantime. So, all right. Thank you again. Hope you all have a wonderful day. We are